So I've had my PS5 and Series X for, well, 10 months now. They're coming up to their 1-year anniversary, which is pretty crazy considering it feels like they've just come out, and also most people still can't get their hands on one of these next-gen consoles. But if I did have to choose just one to keep, and taking into account all the new stuff coming to these machines over the next year or so, I'm pretty certain I know which one I'd stick with. But there are plenty of reasons you might want to go with one over the other, and that's where things get interesting. Of course, all this is just my opinion, but if you do enjoy the video and find it helpful, then a cheeky little like and subscribe would be very much appreciated. So I bought both of these myself, but if I could only keep one, I would probably go with the PS5. Don't get me wrong, I love the Series X, and I think almost from a hardware technical point of view, it's actually the superior console. And of course, Game Pass is a huge selling point. In fact, if I was on a tighter budget, I would probably just go with a Series S with Game Pass and call it quits. Job done. But in my case, the wild card is in that room over there, my desktop PC, and because that also has access to Game Pass, I therefore get the Xbox exclusives on my PC. Now, of course, not everyone is lucky enough to have a desktop PC and a console, and of course I actually made a video all about whether you could build a PC for similar money to these, and the answer is no, unless you want to spend like 3 times the money. But for my situation, I think having a PS5 plus a PC or a laptop is the best combination. But putting PCs to one side, while it is kind of a cliche, with these consoles, it really is all about the games, and also of course where your friends play online. And for me, it is mostly PlayStation exclusives that I'm most excited for, and I also do prefer the DualSense controller for the smart haptic feedback and adaptive triggers, even if I do turn it off in some games. And there's also no getting around that there are some pretty terrific PS5 exclusives already available, like Ratchet & Clank, Returnal, Demon's Souls, and I'm about to get properly into Deathloop. Plus, I can't wait for next year's Horizon Forbidden West. But that said, I am also really looking forward to Forza Horizon 5, which I think looks incredible, and also Halo Infinite, to really get a feel for what the Series X can do. Even if I must admit, Halo doesn't look particularly next-gen, if I'm being honest, or maybe that's just me. Now, this isn't a reason to go with one over the other, but clearly the PS5 is more popular, as Sony have sold, I think, like 11 million units versus about 7 or 8 for both the Series X and the S combined, so more people do seem to want a PS5. And that's made it the fastest selling console ever. So while silicon shortages and pandemics have slowed production, a lot of availability issues are simply down to people falling over themselves to get one, me included. However, while I think the PS5 is great, that doesn't really extend to the digital-only edition. While it is 50 quid cheaper, going discless dooms you to paying full price for games on the PS Store without the option of proper refunds or the chance to sell games on and trade in. It's a total false economy. But whichever one you go for, has it actually been worth upgrading to a next-gen console? Well, I can tell you I don't love the ludicrous £70 asking price for some new games. I have to wonder how much this has impacted sales, as I've only bought a couple of games at that price, and it hurt like hell every time. But leaving that to one side, the exclusives I've played so far have been pretty good for games this early on in the generation. And while the jump in graphics fidelity maybe hasn't been that huge, there are definite benefits to load times, 120 FPS support in some games, and just overall quality, especially if it supports ray tracing. We've also just had the PlayStation Showcase, which has shown off some great looking games like God of War Ragnarok, Spider-Man 2 and the Uncharted 4 remaster, also a teaser for Wolverine, and maybe most exciting of all to us lot who remember it first time round, a remake of Knights of the Old Republic. But we do also now have a proper date for Gran Turismo 7 in March next year, so there's plenty of games to look forward to, although I was a little bit disappointed that we haven't seen a new PSVR 2. However, if you can't get your hands on a console, or you just want the biggest library of games, and also the ability to do a whole lot more as well, why not grab yourself a shiny new laptop from scan.co.uk. And right now, there's some pretty tasty back-to-school deals, including this Asus ROG Strix G15, now £100 off. Both the Asus TUF F15 and MSI Katana GF66 with RTX 3060s are £200 off. And if you just want the best performance possible, this SCAR 17 with a 3080 is a whopping £500 off. but they all feature NVIDIA's 30 series laptop GPUs with Max-Q technology from the 3050 up to the 3080. And you're getting all the best gaming tech, including ray-traced graphics, reflex for faster response times, DLSS for upscaling and giving you huge performance boosts, plus also the faster NVENC encoder really speeds up my video editing. So check out the links in the description below, and a big thank you to NVIDIA and Scan Computers for partly sponsoring this video. The thing is though, as I mentioned in my original PS5 and Series X reviews, the main reason I think to buy one of these new consoles isn't for the next-gen exclusives, it's because it's the best way to play cross-platform and older-gen games, as we get much faster load times, smoother frame rates, and on the Xbox, HDR added in thanks to Auto HDR. And plenty of games get a frame rate boost from 30 to 60 or even up to 120 FPS, either with patches or if supported automatically with Game Boost and FPS Boost on PS5 and Xbox. And if you do have a 120Hz TV, then in compatible games like Dirt 5, Siege, and soon to be updated Rocket League, having 120 FPS support reduces latency, makes gameplay feel so much smoother, and actually it brings it more in line with a proper PC gaming experience. Although on the flip side, only a handful of games do support 120, and the reality is that most games will drop resolution or image quality to maintain that triple-digit frame rate. But we are also starting to see some proper meaningful updates to older games. We've just had the Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut, the FF7 Intergrade, the PS5 version, and in Tsushima, which is still one of my favorite games, we get better graphics at full 4K 60 and also DualSense controller support. Personally, I can't wait for proper updates for Last of Us 2 and Red Dead 2. It's funny because before these consoles launched, there was so much hype around which is faster and technically more powerful in terms of teraflops, but really it all came down to the fact that both of them had super fast PCIe 4 SSDs. And while on paper the PS5 is slightly faster, but then the Xbox has more convenient expandable storage, although we'll come back to that in a second, it's these SSDs that's made the biggest difference to this new generation of hardware. Because now we're talking seconds rather than minutes for load times, and in games that properly support it, like the new Ratchet & Clank, it's unlocked a whole new kind of seamless gameplay experience. Now storage, while much faster, is a bit of an issue because on the PS5 we only have 670 gigs usable to play with versus 802 on the Xbox, which is a little bit better. Now that will fill up pretty quickly, so on the Xbox you have this pretty elegant plug and play solution with this 1TB Seagate expansion card, which will set you back about 200 quid or so, nice and simple. Whereas PS5 owners have to jimmy open the console to install a top-end and pretty expensive PCIe 4 SSD. One with at least a 5500 megabyte per second read speed. And these are even more expensive and pretty rare right now, although at least the software does finally support it, 10 months after launch. Although to be fair, you can use cheaper external SSDs to store PS4 games, which does help a little bit. But the Xbox has another advantage, because this holds the last 5 games you've played in a kind of stasis, it's cached them, so it basically loads near instantaneously back to where you were. I really wish the PS5 had this, and don't be fooled by the app switcher because you will definitely be closing the game you were just playing to open the other one. It can't come quick enough to have something like Quick Resume on the PlayStation. Other good stuff? Well, both machines obviously feel a lot faster to use, and compared to last gen, they also feel more premium, and crucially for the PS5, it is so much quieter than my old PS4 Pro. What a world of difference it makes to quality of life, not having to listen to a bloody hurricane over there when your PS4 Pro is playing a bit of Last of Us. Going back to the hardware for a second, and I have to say that when you're in a multi-platform game, other than maybe the feel of the controller, it's easy to forget which one of the two you're actually playing on. I mean, Digital Foundry are great at finding the odd frame rate dip here and there, but in isolation, it's usually very difficult to tell them apart, which is obviously good for everyone. Now, having had both of these consoles in my living room for the best part of a year now, in terms of design, I have to give it to the Series X. I think it's the best engineered console I've ever seen, and while the design may be a little bit boring, it really does just blend into my living room. Which isn't something you could say about the PS5, which definitely likes to remind you of its presence every time you enter the room. And also, Sony, please stop it with the glossy black trim. It just scratches so easily, it's ridiculous. As for software, the PS5 is just about catching up with the Series X. It's only just now getting expandable internal storage support. Variable refresh is still due at the end of the year, maybe, and it still doesn't support any kind of Dolby Vision Premium HDR in games. Whereas the Xbox already has all of these things. And also the interface is about to get a 4K upgrade. I'm kind of surprised we didn't have that from the start, to be honest though. But then back with Team Blue, and the PS5 does have its fancy 3D audio tech for its official headphones, although support for other types of sound system is in the latest beta software. But what I'm most excited about is at the end of the year, Game Pass Ultimate subscribers will get access to Xbox Cloud Gaming, which lets you stream Game Pass games at 1080p 60, and so if you have a good connection, this obviously will save on storage space and download times. Buy a Series X or S with Game Pass, and you've automatically got a fantastic library of new and back-compatible games, including exclusives and day one access to big upcoming first-party titles. And it means you can try games you wouldn't normally buy, maybe like MLB 21 or something, and also play with friends without any outlay. And of course, this extends to PC as well, so one subscription means you have a ton more games on your desktop as well. And I would argue it's way ahead of Sony's PS Now service, which unlike Game Pass you have to pay a second subscription for, although all in the cost is comparable. PS Now does work well, and you actually do get more games from the PS2 era onwards, but it's primarily a streaming service, with only a limited number of games to be downloaded and played locally. You can also play it on PC as well, but unlike Game Pass it doesn't get new first-party exclusives. But what I think is going to be really interesting is pairing a Xbox Series S and a Game Pass subscription with that new xCloud game streaming service that's coming very soon. What a combination, especially if you're on a tighter budget. Of course, you still have to pay for the subscription, but that has to be the cheapest entry point to next-gen gaming that you can get right now. So much of this, and which is better, is subjective. It's personal preference, and none more so than the controllers and which you prefer. For me, I actually kind of like using both, but unlike Xbox, Sony's actually done something with the new consoles, and so we have the adaptive triggers, we have the speaker built in, and also much smarter haptic feedback. And it really does give you a more immersive feeling in games when you can feel the different surfaces you're moving across and having extra resistance when firing guns or shooting arrows. Although in multiplayer games like Call of Duty, I do turn off adaptive triggers because it gets annoying pretty quickly. As for media, both support most major streaming apps and also can stream 4K with basic HDR10, although on the Xbox we do also get Dolby Vision support, which is a dynamic HDR standard which gives you better performance. The PS5 may get Dolby Vision eventually, but no guarantees. But when it comes to the 4K Blu-ray player, both are disappointingly stuck with HDR10, although they do support Dolby Atmos and DTS:X surround sound. So 10 months on, and finally there are some properly good exclusive games to play, although really, if you haven't bought one yet, I don't think you've missed out on that much. The best games have only just started coming out, and of course, as we approach Christmas, we're going to have Battlefield and Deathloop and Forza Horizon 5, tons of stuff just coming out now, but I would definitely say they are worth the upgrade, even if not for the new games, just for how much better your older games perform. It is the best way to play your old favorites. Now, I don't regret buying any of them, and of course in a perfect world we'd all have all the consoles and PCs and be able to play everything, but I think for me my situation's a bit different because I have a gaming PC as well, which gives me access to Game Pass, which is why I would definitely go for the PS5. But if you are on a really tight budget, let's see how the Series S with Game Pass and cloud streaming performs. That's going to be really interesting. But of course, this is all just my own opinion. So what about you? Which console do you have or are you looking to get? And also, do you regret it or do you think it was worth the upgrade? Let me know in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this video, as I say, a cheeky little like and subscribe would be amazing. And I'll see you guys next time right here on the Tech Chat.
Well, I'd recognize that dour expression anywhere.